I'm Amy with Domus Analytics, and we'll be reviewing all of your new market stats tools that launched this week for you guys. So I'm really excited that you're here and can go over all of this. It probably looks like there's two of me online, but that's actually Ed as the other me. He will be on and answering questions. So as we go through all of this, if you have anything that you want to ask, feel free to type that right in there and he can get a response out to you. So you should be looking at the Market Stats member portal page right now. And your first question is, how do you get to this stuff? So on Flex, there are two things that you're going to be able to do. The first one is under the products menu in the MLS. There should be a link to Domus Analytics. I haven't seen that particular one, so it might say Domus, it might say Market Stats, but that's the link that will bring you to this portal page. And then you also have a deep link on the listing detail page. So when we get there, I will let you know which dashboard that opens up. So you don't even have to go out to the separate portal page. Once you are looking at a listing, you can get directly to one of the dashboards. And that's a new integration with Flex. So we're really excited that they got that up and running with you guys right away. So the dashboards here, there are 5 of them. We are primarily an online interactive tool that can be printed, but all of the things we'll be going over are built for that interactive online experience. And we have this set up going from the simplest dashboard to the most complex, because you're going to have different needs depending on who you're working with and what story you're trying to tell. So we've tried to make several different options for you that you can choose what works best for you. And there's no right or wrong answer here. If after today you pick one dashboard that's your favorite and that's the only one you ever want to look at, then I'm going to call that a win because you found some stats that work for you. And if you want to use all of them, then that's fantastic too. So don't feel like, you have to absorb everything all at once and do it. You're going to do bits and pieces, whatever you want. And as a note, this is being recorded, so you don't have to take notes as we go along. You can always go back and watch. So we're going to get started here with the market, infographic. Now, when you're getting to the dashboards, you can click on any of the icons here on the top or the link in the box here. They will both work. But let's bump over to the infographic and go over this. So this is our simplest dashboard here. It is meant to be the snapshot of what happened in the most recent month. So this is April we're looking at because we're in the month of May. As soon as we hit June, this is going to cycle. I think there's actually a 2-day delay on this one, just to make sure you guys can get in your updates to any of the listings before it starts being shared out. But this is looking at April. We are defaulting to residential listings across all 20 of your cities right now. And on all of the dashboards, anytime you see this upside down triangle here, that means it's a filter you can interact with. So if I wanted to look at a month besides April, I could just click on here and you can see there's a whole lot of months going back in history that you can go and look at. You can also change the property types on here. If you are selling a lot of land, for example, you can switch to that one. And you can go down and drill into the cities, but I will leave all of these on here for now and show you have just these high level metrics, the median sales price, closed sales, etc. And they are all showing a comparison here. By default, the comparison is showing you the same month of the prior year. So this is a year over year comparison to April of 2021. But if you'd rather look at how this is compared to last month, you can use this toggle switch up at the top and just click that to prior month. And now that just changed my percentages to the prior month. So I can see I am up in sales price 13% from March to April in residential. And if I click my toggle switch back again, I'm actually up 47% from last April. So it's a huge jump. So on here, a fun little thing that we do for you guys, you can see at the bottom, it's median sold dollar per square foot. If you go to look at just land, I will click off this little checkbox button and click back onto my land one. That just changed to dollar per acre. So that happens across all the dashboards where there's land. It switches to those for you. And I'll go back in and change to my residential, and then point out at the bottom of here is where your printer icon is. So when you want to print, it's just a click away. This will open whatever printer is related to the browser that you're using. I'm on a Chrome browser, so this is the printing function as Chrome likes to present it. It will show the Firefox one is a little bit different. Most of the browsers are pretty good about listening to our instructions that say, please print this to a single 8.5 by 11 landscape. Safari, unfortunately, does not listen as well as others. So if you are using a Safari browser, you might need to adjust your settings. It's typically the scale option that should just get you down to the right size page. So I will cancel that one out, and that's it on the infographic. So it's high level, it's simple, it's easy to use. We've got a nice mountain picture back there. Hopefully that looks kind of like some of the things in your area. And I will bump back to the portal page now and show you that we're going to go to the next dashboard in complexity, which is the market review. Now, the market review is actually my favorite dashboard, and this is the one that is linked from the listing detail page on Flex. So when you're looking at a specific listing and you click on that button, it's up at the top bar under detail. You have several different products listed up there. You're just going to look for the Domus Analytics one, and it will automatically populate the market review. It's going to open it for you, and it will bring up whichever property type is related to that listing and whichever city is related to that listing. So we'll pick on Flagstaff, for example. If it is a brand new listing like that day, it probably will not be in our system yet. We do update this data daily, actually in the evening. So if you put something in at 2 p.m. and want to see the stats for it at 4 p.m., that's not going to be in our system yet. You'll have to come back the next day and look at it. It will just default to all of the property types and cities in that case, but it will still open this dashboard for you. Now you can already see on this one, there are a few more metrics than what was on the infographic. And this time, rather than switching between your month over month or year over year, it actually shows you both of those. Right next to the metric, I've got the month over month. All the way at the end on the left-hand side, I've got the year over year. And then the spark line between those two is those values for each one of those 13 months. And all I'm doing right now is moving my mouse across here, and it's showing me those values. Now, you also may notice on the spark lines, on each one of them, there is a dashed horizontal line that goes across that area. That horizontal line is the value of the metric for whatever month you are looking at. So without even moving my mouse across that spark line, I can tell that I am at the highest median sales price right now in Flagstaff than I have been over the last 13 months, because that line bumps up and down a little bit, but it is all under that horizontal line. So you don't even have to interact with it to see what was happening for that time period. So that's one of the reasons I really like this dashboard. You can also change that month, just like on the infographic, and go back in time and look at some other periods. And this one, we've been looking at 13 months, but up in the top here, you'll see there's that toggle switch again. I can click that and quickly move to a year-to-date, year-over-year analysis. So now I'm looking at residential properties in Flagstaff from January through April for 2022 compared to January through April of 2021. And when I change this time period and go back to, say, last year sometime, now that's giving me that same year to date for those 2 years over each other. Inventory and month supply are blanked out on this one because by the nature of their definitions, they are not annual metrics. So that's why we blank that out. It was done on purpose, just so you know that. And that is this dashboard for you. It can also be printed just like the infographic. So I'm going to go back to the portal page again. And for the moment, we will skip over weekly trends and bump right over to market insights. Now, the two that we just looked at are considered public dashboards because they are high level. You may have been thinking, oh, residential, I would rather have, my property subtypes. Well, that's in the member dashboard, which is this one right here. So let's go through this one. Already you can see you have a much longer time period on here. We're going back to 2012 for you, and it goes month by month. It doesn't list all of the months down in the bottom just because there's not enough room to list all of those, but they are all in the chart here, as you can see if you hover over one by one. And if this is too long of a time period for you to look at, maybe you only want to look at the last 5-ish years or so. I'm hovering my mouse over this data point here for June of 2016. All I'm going to do is click on my mouse button, the regular left mouse button, hold that button down and drag it across the screen. And when I let go of it, now it just zoomed into that smaller area. So if you're trying to just get a more recent story, you can do that little trick. And when you're done with that, the button up at the top of the chart to reset the zoom brings you back to that default complete time period. Now, I've got the metrics on the other ones were all available. On this one, you can see I've got my little upside down triangle. This is where all of the metrics are for this dashboard. So when you click on it, we've got the entire list of metrics here. You can use your mouse to scroll up and down using the bar on the right-hand side. The up and down arrow keys on your keyboard also work to do this. So let's take a look at some of these metrics. We obviously have sales price, that's your median sales price. Closed sales, you're all familiar with, sold dollar per square foot. Percent of list received price, I'm going to show this one because this is the one that most people are familiar with. It typically doesn't bounce around much below 90% and much above 102, 103. You guys are a little bit higher than some of the other ones that we've been seeing. And that's the specific reason I don't like this metric as much, is because it does have such a narrow band. When you're getting the difference between 103.4, 0.5, and 0.6, well, that's not really an interesting story. The metric that I like more than this one is on this list here, and this is the percent closed above the list price. So rather than talking about what's the average that people are getting, we're going to talk about who and how many of those listings are going for above what they were listed for, not equal to that list price, but above that last list price. So 61% for you guys. That's a pretty crazy number. I think the highest one in one of our markets was about 71%. So you are getting really close to that. So I really like this one. I think it has a better story to tell and helps you work with your clients a little bit more to say, wow, I think you really are going to need to offer above that list price, because 61% of the other people are offering above list. If you just offer list, then we're probably not going to get that property. So I really like this metric. Heading back over there onto our list, you've got your days on market, sold dollar volume, and active inventory. Let's take a stop over on this one and see what's going on. So the inventory, just like every market, has been going down, down, down over the years, but you guys are seeing a nice dip up. So that probably feels pretty good here. I'm going to open up our filter panel now as we talk about this. I've got this toggle switch up in the top right. And now you can see we've been looking at residential, but here is where you get to those property subtypes. So I can, let's get rid of fractional and manufactured and some of these other ones, so we can look at some other details here. We've got your cities and your areas as well. And then I've added some sliding filters for price range, living area, and acres. Now, let's say I'm looking at my inventory and I'm working with a first-time home buyer. I'm going to grab this filter here for the slider price range. I'm going to click on the bar here at the far right and just drag it down. So why don't we head down to about 250 for my first-time buyer. And I'm looking at that in those 3 residential subtypes. I will hide that filter panel, and your first-time home buyers are really crying right now is what's really going on here. Back a couple years ago, they had hundreds of choices, and now they have 4. So that's probably one of the craziest ones I've seen, actually. But this is a great example of where you can use the stats to help communicate with your client. If they're complaining to you that you're not showing them enough homes that they can buy, your answer is there just aren't a lot of homes that you can buy. You know, many years ago, we had options. Now we don't. So use the stats to be that bearer of bad news. You're just communicating it out to them. So I love that this story is right here for you, and it makes it so obvious, right? And if you wanted to, down at the bottom, you have a few other options here. The property type is residential, so that's not going to change if I click on that one. It's just going to show me that same line. But if I wanted to break that down by the property subtype that I chose, this is going to break it out now by my single family, condo, and townhouse. And I can see, yep, they've got 2 single families to choose from. So, and no townhouses, 2. So that'll be 2 condos. This is a great story to be able to tell them. Now, I also know that I still had multiple cities selected on here. So maybe I want to click on this city button to say, well, where are they? And they are hard to see on here. So I'm going to grab this and do that other trick that I showed you and kind of zoom in and see if it makes it bigger. There we go. Now I can see that they're going to have to stay in Flagstaff if they want those homes. And there's one in Parks and one that's probably hiding underneath there that's not letting me get to. But let's say I want to get to them. I'm having a hard time seeing on here where they are. I'm going to come over to my number 4. And all I'm going to do is double click on my mouse. It's a very quick double click. And that's going to open up and show me where those listings are. So you can export this to Excel and keep it. This trick works on any data point that I click on. You saw me do it on the number here. I can go here and pick on a point on a line. It will also open that up for me. And if I go to my next chart type, which is up at the top here, we've been looking at time series. I'm going to click on price distribution, and it's going to be small because I'm only looking at under 250. But now I can see where each one of those are and click on any of the bars, and that will open up and get that there. So this one's a little more interesting to look at when we have more price bands in here. So I'm going to drag my filter out to show you that now we are looking at the active inventory for those property types in each of the cities. So a lot you can do with this dashboard. That click through to those listings is one of the other reasons this is a member only dashboard, because you do get all of that detail. Note that that is not going to the actual MLS. That is our warehouse, our data warehouse copy of the data. So if there is a field you need, say number of garage spaces, and it's not in that list when you clicked through, you will need to go to the MLS to get that data. So let's go back to no breakout here. We'll look at our time series again and finish going through the metrics list here. We've got the month's supply of inventory, which is a cousin to that active inventory number. And you can see here, this is our balanced market bar in the middle, right between 5 and 7 as defined by NAR. And you haven't been in that balanced market since 2019. So it's been quite a while. Then we've got the new pending sales, which is your new contracts on a monthly basis. The new listings, the original list price, percent of distressed, which is probably going to become more interesting if we do go into a deep recession here. Unsold listings is going to be any of the properties that were expired or withdrawn. So you also have access to all of those. And then we already went over that last one on percent closed above list price. So we've been looking at everything at a monthly analysis. You can also look at this by a quarter down underneath the metric box there. I can just click on by quarter. And now that has changed to show me for Q1, we had 49 unsold listings. Now this will only show through whichever time period you're looking at. So the monthly only went through April, doesn't show us in May intra-month. This won't change to Q2 until July 1st, and so on. I can also change this to a by year analysis using that same button panel down below. And when I move to by year, I have the option of looking from year to date, which will be January through April for each year right now, or annual, which is going to be the full year for each year compared to year to date where we are right now. And this one is really fun to look at as we get into Q4 to see where we are, you know, comparatively and how close we might be as the year comes to a close. So on here, let me go back to my filter panel. I want to mention something else about these price ranges. we've got the values here at the end and a little plus sign. The plus sign is a little indicator to you that you can analyze the market above any of these values. We just had to pick a value to put on here because it doesn't let it be an open-ended filter. But if you wanted to do the analysis above any of those values, all you're going to do is drag your slider all the way over to the end. And now you have told the dashboard, I would like an analysis of my unsold listings $1 million and over. And when I hide my filter panel, that's now showing me for what I've chosen on my year, there were 18 of them in 2022. And that works across, any of the metrics we're going to be doing. When you are done doing your analysis with that, it does not let you drag that handle back over because it doesn't know which handle you want to drag. So the way to get out of that is just to click anywhere on the line, then it knows which handle to grab, and you can go about your business moving them to either side or anywhere in the middle. So there we go. We'll put that back there. And the last thing I have to show you on this dashboard is my little question mark down in the panel here. That is our little help section. So if you are using the dashboard and you realize that you had a question about something, maybe you wanted to talk more about inventory and the month supply, you click on that and it's going to move you to our support site. And I can say, oh, look at that. There's a fact on the absorption rate versus the month supply of inventory and how those are related. So this is always available to you. We are always adding information here as we get questions from people and clarifications. We put things in here and we have tried to make it easy and not technical in terms of the language you're using so that you actually can read something here and understand what it is. There are also short videos on how to do some things, literally 2 to 3 minutes. So you're not going to spend a whole, hour trying to get to your answers. So that is available to you from our little question mark bar. And it is also available from our little hootie owl down at the bottom. So if you just logged right in and you want to go straight to the support site, that's where you can get to that as well. So I skipped over weekly trends. Now I'm going to go back to that. And the reason why I skipped it is because you can see that it is, I will close this real quick, a smaller version of the Market Insights, the monthly dashboard that we just looked at. It's smaller because it's weekly, so it already has less data in it. And we put a few less filters in it as well. The reason being is with stats, you want to include as many properties and listings as you can to get a good economic answer. When you're using search, absolutely narrow down as tight as you can. I happen to know the street that I want to buy my next house on. That's a really narrow search right there, but that wouldn't give me economic answers. So when I go looking at how that market's doing, I always put in that neighborhood and one up north that's very similar and a couple around it. So you want to try to include as much data as you can when you're doing your market analysis. Now, this shows you that week by week of what's been going on. And I've got my cool horizontal line on here, just like in the review dashboard that represents that current value. So I can see on a weekly basis, the sales price has been bouncing kind of up and down around where we are right now for quite a while. And you can also see where we were last year. So last year I was lower than I am this year. But I've got up here on top, this is my current week compared to that last week and compared to that last week of last year as well. So it just gives you that high level of what's been going on. Excuse me. And you can do that same trick if you want to pick a point and zoom in a little bit to see more recent weeks and then reset that zoom and that knocks out of there. And this dashboard, it started during COVID when we couldn't wait for a month to find the answers of what was happening in the market. But it's really taken off as something that agents are using with their active clients. So if you're working with an active buyer, they want to know, hey, what's happening this week? What's the price doing? Do I need to think about changing my budget? Where are we? So this one made its way back to our standard product after COVID because it was so popular and being used by a lot of agents day to day. So We've got one more dashboard to go over here. We are at the most complicated dashboard here, pricing insights, but it's a really fun one. I think you're going to like this one. This one is the only dashboard that will make you choose your filters before you get an answer. So I'm on residential. I'm just going to pick on single family. Let's pick on Flagstaff, and I will grab all of those areas in there. And that is going to show me active, closed, and pending statuses by default for the last month to date. And I can see before I even close this panel here, I've got some higher priced homes out here. So I'm just going to knock out some of these outliers to make the chart easier to kind of describe and look at by using that price filter. And I will hide that. And now let's talk about what this is showing us. So the other charts were all aggregated numbers, number of closed listings, median sales price. This one, every single dot is an individual listing. So I'm looking at this closed guy up here at the top. I can click on it and it's going to show me down below. That's 809 West Summit Avenue. And without even seeing the house, I know it's probably a really nice property. It's up here at almost $1,000 per square foot. I bet it's like fully landscaped, ready to go, granite countertops, radiant flooring, you name it. It's probably in this house at that dollar per square foot, because the median in this market is down here at this horizontal black line. And I can see on the side here, the median is $380 a square foot. Now I can also see the median sales price at $721 here on the right. That's this vertical line here. And where these two black lines intersect, this is the middle of this market. So single families in Flagstaff, this is where the homes are that will be very representative of your average property in that area. And I can click around on some of them again and see what those values are on the bottom. If you wanted the entire list, you can double click on my selected listings box here at the bottom, and that pops up that listing that we saw in the last dashboard. So you have access to all of this data. And now the intersection of these lines actually breaks this dashboard into four different quadrants. And how you look at this is this bottom quadrant, the left bottom, these are the low priced value listings. These are going to be homes that are probably smaller, older, probably need some work. Maybe you have, some short sale properties in there, or, something happened, but somebody's down here for a reason. And if I click on this guy, at the bottom here at 69 Layup Road, that's probably going to be a house that somebody could buy if they were really good with swinging a hammer on their own and wanted to put some sweat equity in there. Maybe it's a first-time home buyer, maybe it's a flipper, but that's going to be down in the lower priced value is what we call that. Now the guys here on the opposite corner, these are our luxury listings. That one I clicked on at $939 a square foot. At that price, it better have all those things we talked about before. And even the one, right below that here, $565, he's still well above that median price, and he's got a high dollar. He should be a newer house over there and not need a lot of work. So these are going to be your luxury listings. And then I've got my top corner on the left. This is a higher dollar per square foot, but still overall a lower price. So maybe this is one of those older, smaller homes that somebody did some upgrades on already. So they already put some of those new convenient luxuries into. And then the opposite corner over there is a higher price, but lower dollar per square foot. Sometimes you find your larger homes down in here. Larger homes tend not to command as high of a dollar per square foot just because they are so big. Or maybe you've got some folks down here that are, nice expensive homes, but they need a little bit of updating. Maybe it was built in 04, 05, and it's about time for a refresh. So this is how the market is broken up into these quadrants. And this is how buyers look at the market, right? The whole point of this dashboard is to help show you where a property sits in relation to all of the other properties. And then how you use this is where the fun comes in. Let's say you are working with a seller and they've come out and they've said, you know what, my house is really nice. I put a lot of work into it. I want to sell it for $965. And, it's actually a little bit bigger. So I've got some, more space to grow. I'm 2,100 square feet. And now this is showing me on my gauges here that this proposed listing is higher than 98% of the other homes in this market in terms of price and higher than 90% of them in terms of dollar per square foot. And I happen to have a guy that's pretty close to where these blue lines intersect because that's where that property would sit. I can click on this one and say, great. Are you pretty comparable to 5745 Girls Ranch Road? Are you nicer than them? Are you not quite as nice? Where are you in relation to some of these around here? And this is how you can help get to that right price quicker. You can also use this with your buyers. And if you're taking them on a tour of several houses, for example, pop in the list price and square foot of every home they're looking at and see where that home is in relation to the rest of the market. Because really that's how people look at this. And this one, market review is my favorite dashboard. This one is actually Ed's favorite dashboard because he's the bigger stats nerd between the two of us. And this one came out of working with an agent in Boston who was working in a very small area and having a hard time pricing a property and said, what can you help me with on this? So that's where this dashboard evolved from. And we say, use this on both sides, use this with those sellers, use those with those buyers. We actually use this. There was a house we were looking at because we love open houses and go all the time. And we walked through the house and went, wow, that property feels really underpriced compared to the other stuff we're looking at. And came right home and put in the information. And sure enough, it was down here in this bottom quadrant. It was close to the middle, but it was in the bottom quadrant. And we went, oh yeah, we were right. Our feeling about where they were, they came right in under there because they wanted to sell quickly, and they did. So it was great for that. So that is all of the dashboards. Give me a moment here to switch my screen, and I'm going to share a presentation with you. And we're going to go over a few more use cases for stats. So I just showed you a whole lot of dashboards, and we talked about, if you only use one, that's fantastic, but you might be saying, well, which one should I use? What's the right answer? And there's a couple of ways to look at that. We like to think about stats in terms of bite, snack, meal. And the idea is that you only want to give the consumer of your data and your stats the amount of information that they can easily digest. So maybe they just want that little bite of info. They just, hey, what's price doing? Is it up? Is it down? That's all I care about. That's great. Just give them that. If they want, everything and the kitchen sink, that's going to be a meal. That's going to be the market insights dashboard. So the things to consider are, who are you working with and what kind of information do they like to consume? And then you need to consider what you are comfortable with and what your level of understanding is and how you can communicate best. So if you have that one that you like to go to all the time and it works for you, then that's fantastic. It's really that marriage of those two ideas of what you're trying to communicate and how comfortable everybody is with various levels of information. So let's talk about some specific cases. Whether you are at a barbecue or you're in an elevator or just, chatting with your neighbor real quick about something, that market infographic is that high level bite of info. Hey, what's going on? What's the price? Were there a lot more sales this month? This one is a great one for social media, where people have the attention span of about 3 seconds and they're just going to scroll past things. And that's why we made yours, with a really pretty picture in the background. It's going to grab the attention. People are going to look at it, get a little info and move on. And it's also great for generating more questions, right? You don't want to give out everything. That's why your infographic stayed at that higher level of residential, for example, because you want them to have to call you and say, hey, it says this is residential. Can you give me the details on, townhomes? I need that additional level. So it's meant to generate questions, not put all of the answers out there. And that's what we really love market infographic for. Market review. This one has all of those metrics all there on one page all together. Everybody's always asking about, when are we going to be out of this seller's market? And we're starting to see it right now, right? We've been seeing inventory has been low forever, but as it starts to rise up, that starts to move more towards a buyer's market. As the days on market moves up a little bit, when some homes sell slower than they have been, that's another good indicator that we're moving towards a buyer's market. Because you can look at metrics not only on their own, but together and see how they relate to each other. So If you are looking at, the inventory is still low, but the median sales price is starting to come down a little bit, well, that's an interesting bit of information. And if you just looked at inventory, you might not have said, hey, I think things might be shifting. But when you look at those all together on something like this dashboard, it really does help tell that story. So this one I really like for that kind of communication. We went over the first time home buyer example and looked at your inventory, but you can also use the stats on the opposite side of that with your higher end sellers, right? They're hearing all about this crazy hot market and homes selling, over a weekend, and want to know why that's not their situation. And they're going to blame you at first because that's how it always goes. And then you can come back and show them the stats and say, well, here's the reality of the situation. Yes, in the lower ends, homes are absolutely selling faster, but when you are in the higher end market by price band, it's going to take a lot longer. Back here when we did this demo with the screenshots, we were looking at about a month to sell, but in those higher markets, that's actually closer to 3 months. So it can be a massive difference. And having those detailed level stats to show that information is really just going to help lend you more credibility with your sellers in that situation. Let's say you have somebody who doesn't know exactly where they want to live, or they have, a certain budget and they do want to, look at a few different areas, but you can show them, let me bring all of the areas you're interested in into a single chart and show you, yes, if you want to stay within your budget there, you're going to have to go to, the green area or the red area, because blue is topping up above what you want to spend. So having the ability to do the comparisons, again, across as many comparisons as you need, you're not limited to a certain number, is really going to help drive home that story. And if you're trying to search for where can I look that I will have more options, put the inventory metric in there and compare across those price bands, and you can see where your inventory by price is located to help kind of guide those searches. Especially if you have somebody who's new to the area and they don't really know anything and they're trying to drag you all around from one end of town to the other, right? If you have the stats that show really where you need to concentrate based on their price, that's going to save everybody a lot of time. So I like to use it for that. And I use that example because I literally had a friend who moved here who did exactly that to his realtor. And I felt horrible because I recommended her. But he had her driving, 50 miles across town from one end of town to the other because he couldn't make up his mind. So that's always fun, right? And then we looked at the Pricing Insights dashboard about how you can price your home, how you can use that to show the market and where everything is relating to everything else. So let's talk about marketing with stats. Stats aren't just about numbers for nerds, although we love that because we are the nerds, but you can use stats for your marketing because stats is one of the few things that gets stale really quickly, right? You can't use March stats right now. If you're talking to a client, they're going to say that was 2 months ago. Like, I need to know what's happening now. So stats are a great excuse for you to call up somebody and say, hey, I just want to let you know what's happening in the market right now. And it's different from last week and it's changing. So here's what to keep an eye on. We know somebody here locally who he said many years ago, I open a dashboard every time I get on the phone and it's sitting right in front of me. And that way I can have that information at the tip of my fingers and communicate that to whoever I'm talking with. And if they have additional questions, it's right there in front of me. All I have to do is click a little filter and they think I've just memorized everything about their particular situation. They don't know that he's actually looking right at a dashboard. So every single phone call he makes, he just grabs that and has it there and can talk to all of it. Social media. Like I said, that infographic is great for social media because it really just puts out that information snippet that people can absorb quickly. And with social media, it's really not, well, here's a good way to do it and here's a bad way to do it. In terms of the stats, we like to frame it as good, better, best, because anything you're doing out there with the stats is getting the information out there and it's coming from you, giving you, that credibility as the source of good information. So if all you have time to do is put the infographic on your platform of choice, then that's great. There's somebody here that does that. He throws his stuff up on Reddit every month. And then people who are on and following him start the conversation and ask the questions. So he doesn't even have to think too hard about it. He just puts the dashboard up there, just takes a little picture of it and puts it up and is good to go. And if you want to start adding more information and context to that, don't feel like it has to be something innovative or new or something people didn't know about. You can just call out something that's very obvious, like median price is up, and people will engage with that and they'll build on that. And then obviously, if you have more time, go ahead and add a lot of color and context. I've seen people do several paragraphs of their own economic analysis. I've seen people talk about crazy weather patterns that happened in prior years and how that relates to this year, you know, looking like it's really high up, but it's not really, because last year was the anomaly. So, you know, any color that you are adding as that local expert, go ahead and put that up there. And that's fantastic. You can also use the stats to communicate on a regular basis, whether that's, you know, an email campaign that you're running or you're actually mailing things out to people's physical addresses. You know, just send the market review, let them see what's been going on in the area. And if you have more time, then put a little bit of commentary on there. I've seen people go into their editor and grab a cursive looking font and type a couple sentences on there. So it looks like a little handwritten note. And people will stop and look at it and look at the stats and then call you for more info. And if you have even more time and you have broken down your client database by either area or type of product mix or whatever, then send out an individual one for each one of those. You know, send one rather than for your overall area, send one for, you know, the north end of town, filter down to where that price range is mostly hitting, and send one to the south end based on what they have. So just customize it a little bit more before you send it out. For your active clients, that weekly trends, like I said, that's why it's stuck around, because people were using it in active conversations. We like also putting something like original list price in there with that, because that's where you're going to start seeing things change, right? If your original list price is still going up, then that's showing a lot of optimism on the side of the sellers that they still think they can get top dollar. But when you're seeing that start to come off a little bit, that's something that a buyer you're working with might want to know. Hey, this week is when I finally saw it change. And, you know, send them those few comments and information. And if you have even more time, I would say send that weekly chart of what's going on and also do a pricing chart with that, right? Especially if there's new homes coming on the market and you know your client would like it, just do that pricing chart really quick, pop in that information, and you can say, hey, this new listing, this is right here in relation to all the other homes on the market now. So you really might want to make some time to go see that one, because it might work out for us. So with those active clients, that weekly trends is really a good one that we like to go to. And then for open houses, our best practice for open houses is keep it simple. We went to an open house once that they handed me a packet of like 40 pages of charts, and I was overwhelmed. And I love stats, and I was overwhelmed primarily because I wanted to look at the house first, right? I don't need to look at the stats when I'm there to see the house. I want to see the house. So make this part of it simple on you and on them. All you need is one page. Pick one of those high-level dashboards, whether it's the infographic or the review, and put that on one side. You can even put a little comment or two on there if you want. And then on the other side, throw that pricing insights for that particular property so they can see where it is. They'll be touring lots of properties and can sort of feel their comparison, but when they see it and go, oh, that's where this one is, the first thing they're going to do when they walk to a different property, if that agent didn't do a pricing insights chart, is call you and say, hi, can you do this pricing chart over here for that one? I want to see where it fits. So I've seen that happen. It's pretty fun. Finally, we put together top 5 ways to use stats. If you're trying to figure out how to integrate stats into your workflow, here are the ideas we came up with for you. Number 1 is inventory. That's been the number 1 for many years now, and it still is the story because it drives the entire market. Just keep an eye on that. As the inventory goes up, we expect you should see prices starting to stabilize or come down. You should also see days on market start to go up a little bit, and that closing above that list price should come down a little bit, right? The more options people have, the less they're going to be willing to spend on several of the options that are there. So keep an eye on that. And if it switches again and that inventory starts to tank all over it, well, then those prices are going to go up. So it really is driving everything. Followed by number 2 is the price, right? That's the metric that all of your clients and potential clients care about. Certainly they want to know inventory, and you're watching that for them, but they want to know if they can buy their house of their dreams for the least amount of money as possible. That's their goal. And your sellers on the other side obviously want to sell their house for as much money as they can. So that balance between those two things is the tightrope you're constantly walking. And that's one to keep an eye on. And then number 3, submarkets. Your market is not the market. And what do I mean by that? Well, you're going to see the newspaper publish something that says, oh, for the Northern Arizona area, their inventory is up and prices are way down. Well, that might be true on an overall basis, but if you are selling, land in an area that doesn't have a lot, maybe your prices are going up. And you just need to say, hey, what is my submarket and which one of the dashboards can help me narrow the best in on it? And that's the one that you use and go to and keep an eye on. So learn how to use the tool for your little niche, and it will help you immensely. Number 4, the top 5 ways. The Pricing Insights dashboard itself made the top 5 list just because it is such a powerful tool. And not ironically, it is exactly the marriage of the 2 prior bullet points of price and submarket, because it does help you narrow down in your submarket and show you everything there related to everything else. Now, I should mention it's not meant to be a replacement for your AVMs, your CMAs, or any of those tools. It very much works in conjunction with them. So don't feel like you have to pick one or the other. Absolutely use them all together to get to your answers that you need for your clients. And then finally, just use those stats for your marketing, right? You putting that information out there, becoming known as the source of that information for your clientele. They will come back again and again and say, well, they always know what's going on. So, I'm gonna call Steve and say, hey, what's going on this week? And they will come back to you for that, because they always need to get the most recent information. And if they don't get it from you, they're going to go get it from someplace else. So you may as well use it for marketing you and your brand as much as anything else. So we are rounding up towards the end of our hour-ish here. The whole point of the stats is that they help you tell your story and do your business, right? You are combining your local knowledge with your client's unique situation and using the stats to help drive what direction you need to guide your clients to move in. So definitely use the stats to help increase their faith in you and help tell that story. And in the market that we're going into right now, just because of everything economically that's happening with rising inflation, and is there going to be a recession, and how big will it be, and mortgage rates, and lions and tigers and bears, stats are going to become even more important than they are. Turbulent markets always lead to a desire for more stats to try to find the answers in the numbers. So definitely use them to help you get to those answers for yourself. And as you are using the stats, your job is to see how well they work for you and what you need to make them work better. A large portion of the features that make it into our roadmap are guided by user feedback to us. And it might be something that we don't even have to roadmap. It might be another filter that you guys need in your area that we didn't know about. So maybe it's something in the data you just want to say, I'd really like to be able to do this, and we can already do it very quickly and easily. So as you're using these all, take notes, get feedback back to Judy and your member support team, and let them know how we can make this better for you, because at the end of the day, this is a tool for you guys. And if it's not helping you and making your jobs easier, then we're not doing a very good job. And that makes us sad. We want to do a good job, and we would love it if you love stats as much as we do. I know it's a big ask, but we think they're fun and helpful, and anything we can do to get you on that side of the fence with us as well, we will do it if we can. So that is the end of my presentation here today. Ed's been frantically typing and answering questions, so we can stick around. And if people have more questions or you want to see more things in the dashboard, we can absolutely do that. And the presentation will be made available to the MLS as well, so they can send that out. And again, they did record this today for you. Is this available now? Yes, it is available now. It is a link on Flex under the products menu for the overall dashboard portal page. And if you go to a listing in particular on the detail page, that will, clicking on that, bump you to the market review dashboard in particular. Yay, I'm seeing lots of comments come across that everybody likes it. So very happy. Hope you found today helpful. Go use the tool, go tell your friends. Yay.
Amy,
yes.
I have some questions.
Absolutely.
First of all, can we set up, let's say, a group of reports that we want for a particular neighborhood or price range or whatever, and then have those run automatically once a week or once a month?
No, we don't have that as a feature right now. So you would need to go into the dashboard and look at the particular area you are searching for.
Okay, and we're still running them like one report at a time. So I can't, there's no way to pick like 3 reports for a particular market and just run them all at once. I have to go into each one of these and then pick what I want. And
correct.
okay, and then for a million plus, that's a big range, and there's a big difference in that market for something that's $1 million or something that's $4 million. So is there a way to refine that range?
The way that we set the range is that we try to make it high enough so that there is a very small number of listings up above there. Because with the stats, the smaller number of listings you have, the less economic story that they tell, right? The median price of 3 listings is going to be that middle listing. And that's not really an economic story. It's just, well, there's only 3. So of course it's in the middle. So
yeah,
we try to make that
yeah,
number.
I'm kind of looking at the price.
Yeah.
In Insight.
Yep. I'm going to go share that dashboard again. So we can talk through and show you. There we go. Share. Yes.
So if I wanted to show a client that they're above market or below market, you know, using just that million plus,
yes,
it's a little difficult when you've got everything from 1 million to 4 million lumped together. So how would I use that without refining that?
Yep. So using, so first of all, if 1 million is too low of a number, we can certainly make that a little bit higher. And then that would show a little bit less. But for example, on here, I can see that there were 112 listings that hit that. And the first thing I would do is say, start narrowing down on the areas maybe. So I don't know how big economically Flagstaff is, and if it's all kind of similar, or if some of these areas are different. So I would say start moving some of those out. And then you can also change and say, well, maybe I really only want to look at active and what's going on right now. So if I knock out those statuses, then I have a little bit less. And yeah, looking at this, it does seem like that's a higher number than we usually aim for. So
well, we're a big second home market, and we have 3 big private golf communities here.
okay.
And then, you know, just with the escalation in price over the last couple of years, there are lots of listings now that are over 1 million. And so, yeah, maybe we need to adjust that up a little bit to be more accurate.
Yeah, I'm going to take a note and go in and do a little bit more refining above there and see if we get a better number on here, because on some markets, and go over here. Oh, I didn't put it in there. On the price distribution one, for example, we have 1 to 1.4, I have 1.5, and this is even a little bit higher than we usually see. So I think I'm probably
Yeah.
going to end up adjusting these price buckets for you to
Okay.
help with refining.
Yeah, and we probably need to go up to 5 million.
Okay. I will write that down.
Thank you.
Yep, absolutely. Any other questions from folks? Looks like Ed just realized he might have only been responding to questions to individual people and is trying to put out answers for everyone to hear. So he's talking about social media right now and how to post and do that. Typically, I do one of two things. If I'm doing a social media post, I will do a screenshot of a particular area on Windows. That's Windows key plus Shift plus S, sorry. And then that will just grab whatever area I'm looking at, and then you just post that directly. Or if you go through your print button on any of the dashboards, I will print it to a PDF, and then you can, pop that up and post that. But really, I think the screenshot works the best on social media. Each social media site does things a little bit differently with how they preview images and links and stuff like that. So I've just found that the most expedient and consistent way to do it is to just do a screenshot of whatever you're trying to put out there. All right, other questions, comments? All right. Well, again, I thank you for your time. If you leave and are playing with the tool and you realize you forgot to ask something, absolutely just get that info back to the MLS and we can answer a whole bunch of questions at once. You can also check on our little support site there to see what might be going on from, again, that little question mark. We'll get you there. And thank you so much. I hope you guys enjoy the tool and are happy with using it all.